Alright, Prop 32, minimum wage. Okay, this one is also one that's not super complex. Pretty straightforward. Because it will raise minimum wage in the state of California. So right now, the minimum wage is $16 statewide. It's going to be $17 in 2026. Yes, San Francisco is 18 something, so that's good. But this is talking about statewide, okay? So what will this do? This will increase the minimum wage. If you have 26 or more employees, the minimum wage is going to be $17 immediately, and then $18 in 2025, which is just next year. If your company has less than 26 employees, then it's going to be $17 next year, and then $18 the year after. Okay. Overall price increase generally would be less than 0.5%. This is from one of the legislative analyst office. You might probably could find other economists that disagree with that. What else? We got state and local revenues will likely decrease by a few $100 million because there's lower profits and less taxes from businesses and so on and so forth. So the interesting thing here is, of course, it's the economic question about what you think minimum wage does for the economy, right? If you increase the minimum wage, is that going to cause inflation because people have more money in their pockets, just like during COVID? Is increasing the minimum wage a direct way to fight poverty, right? Which makes sense. As a minimum wage, is that going to cost jobs? Because if you're a small business and you got to pay more for labor, maybe that hurts your bottom line, and now you can't hire another person. So this is an economic issue. It could be a social justice issue. It could be any number of issues, but those are the main questions here. So the policy itself is not complex, but the difficulty is the economics. You guys might have heard that California has a minimum wage for fast food workers, which is $20 an hour. That's in effect for like big franchises. Also for healthcare workers, it's $25, and it's being phased in now, depending where you work, how big the hospital is, whatever, something like that. So there are different minimum wages now for different sectors, and the same arguments are coming up, right, left and right. For the fast food one, Governor Newsom touted that the most recent jobs data, published like a few weeks ago, showed that fast food jobs, all-time high, huge growth, still growing, right? So he's saying, hey, we got $20 minimum wage for fast food, and the world's not ending, right? They're actually doing great. On the other hand, we got folks on the business side, Chamber of Commerce's, so on and so forth. They're saying that that data is preliminary. We're actually going to see huge job losses. We're going to see fast food places shutting down because labor is just going to get so expensive. So that's kind of the two sides of it and kind of the background. Right, so like actually get super deep into the question, you're going to have to read a lot of academic papers, which I think have a certain conclusion, but I'll leave that for the discussion. That's all the background I need on this. This is somewhat straightforward of a policy. So any background clarifying questions people have before we go dig up things that confirm our side? All right. That being said, why don't we mix up the groups this time around?
I want to be against.
Let's do like every other.
I don't know, whatever.
Okay, who's four? Let's go 4.
It's a slam dunk.
Oh yeah?
That dunk is slammed.
Okay.
Ooh.
You're good.
I don't know.
Oh.
For every Californian works at least for full-time 40-hour week, they should be able to afford life's basic necessities. Also, if you pay people more through the private market, then they end up using less public services. So it's almost like giving a raise to these people through the private sector is giving a raise to all of us by extension, right? Less of our tax dollars are going to fund people who cannot afford their own stuff because they have a job that gives them a decent wage. In addition, anybody want to jump in?
You're killing it. You're killing it. Keep going.
Alright, the third bullet point is the same as the second.
Oh, okay. That sounds familiar. So the argument that the general argument that's been around for a few decades now is like raising minimum wage reduces the amount of jobs, and I feel like the evidence points against that. I think like increasing the minimum wage does not necessarily reduce the number of jobs. I do think it does potentially, if a corporation is able to successfully pass that cost back onto the consumer, it might raise your prices as a consumer. But you as a consumer are not obligated to pay for these services, right? Like, you don't have to go to the supermarket and buy from that supermarket. You can go to a different supermarket, or you could do something else. But more so, if in the past these prices were low because these corporations were not paying their workers a living wage, then like you were benefiting from a certain degree of exploitation. Like the person behind the counter was being paid like pennies, and you were like, I want my 89-cent burrito. Yeah, it tastes good, right? Well, it's like
The cheap ass burrito.
that cheap ass burrito was like money you were taking out of the pockets of the person who was like serving that to you, essentially, in a sort of roundabout way. It's like, I don't know, do you want that blood burrito? I don't know.
Sure.
We just have
Throw blood diamonds up in here.
Exploitation,
20 seconds.
I'm just saying, it's not good. So, raise the minimum wage, clear your conscience, you will be free. You will be free.
Don't be in charge of it.
Alright, Saints.
Okay. Any last thoughts on the floor?
Anybody else? No? Okay.
Alright, watch for your vote against.
We're not using that. Alright.
I didn't want to put it in writing.
The against argument, I think that the bulk of our argument that we are going to put forth revolves around the fast food industry.
Blood burritos, man. No, go ahead.
Before I get into it, I think a funny argument that we put forth, and that something that maybe we should really think about, is the fact that if we raise the minimum wage and we create a livable wage to these burger flippers, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Does that affect our education? Right? Does
That
that
was
affect
not
our
We don't want to talk about that.
Wait, I just want to put it out there. I just want to put it out there before we really get into it. Something lighthearted, something to think about, food for thought, Are people gonna think that like, hey, I don't have to achieve a higher education because I can buy a house flipping burgers at In-N-Out, right?
If that's what they want, then.
Just food for thought, food for thought. Anyways, so something that we talked about was, and something that Will brought up was the possibility of prices of products being increased, and how that would affect our quality of life. And then also,
So inflation.
Words. Inflation.
Okay, so yeah, something that I did want to bring up was that when Will said that that was a possibility for like these companies to do, to account for the higher minimum wage, the cost of labor, right, a higher cost of labor. We, as consumers, have a choice of whether we want to purchase these products or not, or like purchase these services or not, and that I don't think it's a good argument because we. What does that lead to? Like, if we hold on to our money and we don't spend our money on these, basic necessities or these services or whatever, then that leads to like a recession, right? Like, there's no money being moved around, right? So, something to think about.
Okay.
And
Put a pin in that for discussion.
another thing is a higher minimum wage decreases a small business's ability to scale, right? It decreases their ability to like contribute to the economy, right? And so like if all of these small businesses are affected because of the cost of labor going up, then are we really prepared to put our business into like larger corporations instead of these like small businesses that are growing up that normally would account for like a healthy economy within our local communities? Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah.
20 seconds. Anybody against? Why should we not vote?
I mean, what Will said, where like if you increase minimum wage, then these people will less likely go for those services, the government services, and saying stuff like that, which I would disagree because you make more money, products like basic necessities, milk, bread, stuff like that, things people need in their homes. And if those increase costs, it kind of just matches up, right? So then you would still have to go to local services to afford bread, cheap milk, because all prices go up. Money, like your minimum wage goes up, the product of these items go up to make sure these stores can afford to pay these people. So technically, it doesn't really like help the government say have these people not go to these services. They'll still be the same. I feel like, yeah. Trying to argue against
Alright,
that.
that being said, anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, how does the government, like in your experience, professional experience, how does the government usually typically sort of dispense its services? Like what is it based upon? What metrics are it based upon?
Income. So I guess if more people make more money, then they would lose access to the services. Because regulations probably don't catch up as fast as what's going on the ground. So
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah.
is that an argument
That's
for or against?
That's an against argument.
Is
That's
it
an
again?
No. That's a for argument because then it's like you're getting them off the government team. You know what
Oh,
I'm
you're
saying?
But
saying,
then
you're saying because they have money, they don't need the service anymore.
But
That's what the government is literally saying.
it's still kind of. But a lot of these people don't have the education to get themselves out of it just because they have more. Because they'll have to be still working these dead end jobs that are paying you $20 an hour. You know, still having to pay these rent, pay for food that's slowly getting increased, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is that an argument against the minimum wage, or is that an argument in favor of like increasing the poverty line, or just changing the metrics by which?
Right.
Because the government only gives you if your income is below a certain level, we'll just raise that level.
Well,
Right.
doesn't it change? It's based on percentage, right?
Percentage of.
Your income. Wait, what am I saying?
Percentage of-
Just concerned.
I just feel like it's pegged at a certain income level,
But then,
and
the
it
hard part-
doesn't get
Everybody.
raised.
Yeah, the hard part is different for different programs too. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
it's like annoying.
I mean,
So,
I'm
yeah,
just talking
like-
about like the government's definition of poverty level.
So
it's
if this
the
increase-
percent
It's a
of median
median,
income.
yeah.
so if this increase, does
So they're
government
gonna-
keep up with that increase and still think these people are below poverty?
Not
It's a
the
line?
percentage
extra
of
poverty.
median income, then there's going to be less people in poverty. Just because they make a little more. And that's determined by.
In California, we love to raise prices for things.
I have a question.
$6 per gallon.
Does
Exactly.
That's
inflation-
ridiculous.
That sounds good to me.
I mean, like, yes, there's gonna be inflation, but it's not like the increase in, if we increase minimum wage, it's not like inflation is gonna increase by the same exact percentage, right?
Yeah.
It's still slightly less than the increase of minimum wage.
Yeah.
So they're like it's a net benefit. It's not like it's like a negative or,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
People would be.
That
Sure.
I think most economists would agree with you. And during COVID, right, when we the federal government gave out hella money, right, and
Yeah.
reimbursements and stuff.
Ooh, ooh.
And they had a child tax credit,
Yes.
which expired last year because they never knew it. But when they did that, it was essentially free money to people with families, and that cut childhood poverty in half during COVID. So,
Yeah.
that was great. There was some inflation, but now it seems to be
It's abated.
not there anymore. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But also
People are
the
still
child tax
mad.
credit is
People
not
are mad
there
about those
anymore.
burritos.
Yeah.
89 cents for a burrito? What
People
happens?
are mad.
Which people?
People are saying
People.
I'm mad.
By the name.
I do feel like my thoughts on minimum wage, like when I was like in high school, were like, oh, minimum wage, it's great. Now I'm more kind of like, I feel like it's like a pretty minimal thing to do. I feel like my problem with the minimum wage is that I don't think it necessarily directly helps or alleviates poverty. I think it does help alleviate income inequality to an extent, but poverty itself,
Marginally, right?
Huh?
Marginally.
yeah,
We're
marginally.
talking from 16 to 17. It's like.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
this specific ballot measure, but like you go back a decade, it's like I don't know. Some of those jobs were still only like what $9 an hour, $10 an hour, $12, and now it's more like 16, 17, 18. I feel like that has been a raise that the American worker has been allowed to get. But yeah, like the earned income tax credit, the child credit, those are more sort of targeted directly at poverty itself, and that's like not on the ballot
Mhm.
necessarily.
So you're.
Well, I'm saying like they're two different things. I'm saying like
Yeah.
I feel like it's a misguided argument or it's an incorrect argument to say, oh, we raised the minimum wage, we're gonna cut poverty. I feel like that that one does not fix the other necessarily, maybe indirectly, but not directly.
I mean, on the list of like the most direct tools we have to
Yeah.
combat poverty, minimum wage is one of them. I think maybe not as effective as a child tax credit, but minimum wage is certainly one of them because it's the poorest, least educated people working these jobs.
That's true.
One of the things is, do you think minimum wage jobs are for adults, or some people are like, well, who cares? Because that's only for teenagers. That's their job, right? So
Yeah.
some people say that.
Also, it's like, where did wages do? Like the leverage that you get, like the benefit you get goes down over time, or like the more you raise it, the more you squeeze that lemon, right? Like, if you're going from 10 to 12, that's a pretty big raise. If you go from like 12 to 14, even though it's the same dollar amount, it's still the benefit is slightly less. You know what I mean?
I mean, less to who, right? Like, 'cause
There's less utility. I don't know.
I mean,
now I'm
you're
getting this
asking-
weird economic concepts I
you
can't
ask the
explain.
workers, I mean, it's the
It's
world
still-
of difference,
it's still money.
right?
Have you
If
ever
you're-
made minimum wage?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're feeding a family on minimum wage and benefits, it means the world to make $1 more, right? So.
Is it
True.
is it livable?
I do
I don't know if
agree
it's
with Will in the sense that this is a band-aid problem because
Yes.
automation,
That's what I meant to say.
robots are taking over minimum wage jobs.
That was my exact argument. That's actually what I meant to say, not what I actually said.
Yeah, like literally, you go and try to go Safeway, Target. It's like self-checkout lines are longer than the actual like.
I'd say
Too
like
many self-checkouts.
here's what it is. I feel like if any sort of like grocery store is going to use the robot should get a wage, okay? And then that wage should be distributed to all the other
Yeah.
workers. You know what I mean? Like it should be like pooled.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like there's some should be some
So
sort
the
of wage.
government
I mean, if you-
should
that's
buy
like-
robots.
When
So
people
they
like
should
add
have-
a
Yes.
tablet,
They should
and
have
add a
tip option.
And then-
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
then-
say, like at boba shops,
The
it's a
tip culture's
tablet
gone
and
too
you can
far.
add a tip.
Add a tip
It,
option.
that's
I don't
the
know.
same
Tips
thing.
tips
It's
might have gone
distributed
too
back
far. I
out.
don't know.
But that's a
Culture's
problem.
gone too far, dude.
Tips might go further.
Who's on the fence on this? No one's on the fence. Everyone knows where they're going.
Four.
I'm gonna vote no.
Four.
I'm for it.
You
Yeah.
gotta let the other states know that we're moving forward.
I'm gonna
not
pencil in
backwards.
maybe.
California liberals. Yeah.
They gotta match up.
I don't know. If this doesn't pass, I feel like it's no huge loss because
It
it's such a
does- yeah.
small amount.
I feel like it doesn't affect.
it's a huge
But
small
that's a
amount.
privileged way to say it.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
us,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a small
Yeah, it's a
amount.
big
Because,
deal.
Like to a family that
A
For someone that doesn't
Bay
work
Area
a
is such a
minimum wage
bubble.
job, it's like very minuscule, right? It's like whatever. Like this problem
Yeah.
isn't that big a problem.
This
Yeah.
would help like farmers and stuff like that.
Well, like or like someone that just immigrated from China, maybe.
Yeah.
This is all they can get. You know.
It's true.
So.
This would
But
benefit the
that's the thing.
small.
I think that like question up there, like, is it just for
The small
teenagers? I think a lot of us, especially like
Never
in a
met-
privileged
never
position,
met
that's how we look at it, and like that's not the reality.
Yeah.
We just don't
Yeah.
see it. We're not exposed to it quite as often. But it is like a very real struggle for families.
Sounds like Will's on the fence.
Oh well,
Let's compare.
No, I mean,
Margarita.
you centrist.
I don't know. Yeah, I am more like centrist on minimum wage.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's the silver bullet that I would want it to have
No.
been.
Mm.
You know.
I mean,
You think-
you have to
It's
think
not
about
a fix all by any means.
what the few years that this is gonna like happen. Like what's gonna happen in the few years, right?
All right. Yeah, in a few years, like I think it's good on the margins. I think long term. I don't know. We were kind of talking about this. Long term. Yeah, we're gonna have to like reimagine what it means to work and what it means to like
Yeah, long
work
term
for a living.
Like, could we wait another 2 years and put this back on the ballot? Or, yeah, kind of like that.
But why are we waiting 2 years?
I don't know. We just got out of COVID.
Because
People like Will.
plaster my face everywhere. This guy cost you $2.
Because who's in
Elaborate on
office?
this.
Because you have to think about who's in
voters
office,
are mad.
who's being voted as a president right
Yeah.
now, right?
People are like, what? Somebody
Like,
made a burrito out
Yeah.
of blood? What?
It's like we have the luxury of waiting or whatever.
yeah, but then you have to
They
think.
don't. That's true. Like, yeah, I've heard like a lot of like people's savings went kind of through the roof because of all the money that was dispensed during the pandemic, and
Yeah.
those savings have pretty much drawn down.
Yeah. Now
So
like
this
credit
probably
card
is.
debt, it's like an all-time high.
Yeah. So this probably is a good time to raise it. A little bit of a boost.
Are you concerned about the potential negative effects of raising it compared to the
No, no.
benefits?
None of the job market. I mean, if the job market's going to take a turn, it's probably just because of cyclical whatever. It's like I think it mainly just is those costs get passed on to the consumer.
I
So.
think also we have to not only reimagine work, but also our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like America is very consumer, like, you know, I buy outfits every like month or whatever, and I feel like that's a very consumer lifestyle. But if we were to like not pay blood burritos, that would mean that we would have to like, you know, maybe change our lifestyle to fit a minimum wage whatever.
Yeah.
So,
And I do think, like, to the point of, we were saying, like, so if you make more money, you're not gonna qualify for some, like, government funding anymore. If we, like, keep those people, if we keep that down so they can qualify, like, there will be no drive to change what our policies look like. Like, reality is we should be increasing those thresholds and, like, making things livable.
Yeah.
If we just keep letting them sit at, like, whatever it is right now,
Donut hole gets
our
bigger.
government's not gonna have any reason. We're like, well, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
we're doing fine. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But when it becomes a point where enough people need the support from the government, but they don't qualify anymore, that's when you can start pushing.
Yeah.
America.
Freedom.
The small business concern, is that like a legitimate concern for you guys?
Oh, maybe.
I think so. Because there's a lot of
Like,
businesses closing down in that stuff.
Yeah, because I think the argument of
Yeah.
like they
It's
can't
so
afford
sad.
the labor anymore, they can't afford to keep the lights on for X
Yeah.
amount of
That's
hours.
true.
Look at
Yeah,
downtown.
It's a
That's
legitimate
true.
one.
Do the math. That's like $1.
Downtown's
You know,
not.
$1 per person per hour difference. That's like what, $8, $40 a week.
Yeah, then you have to think about.
Then it's like what 40 times 4 is $160 a week. If
You're
your
saying
bus-
it's not that much,
Yeah, I'm like if your
Mm.
business is that's the difference.
but that's across like multiple people, right?
Yeah. So
So the number is a little higher.
yeah, let's say you 5 people. That's like $800 a month.
A lot of money
But
to some people.
I think that comes back to also, like,
800.
if you create the problem where enough small businesses have to close because they can't afford it,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
is that when you start going back to the government to say, like, you guys need to
Right.
create programs
So
for
that's where I was
this.
gonna
Like,
go with
Then
that.
it's like
You need to-
subsidies.
push. You
Right.
need to create a problem to
Yeah.
solve a broader problem.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go with that. I think that the government should help these small businesses
Yeah.
do better
Mm.
because it in turn helps the government. It in turn generates more. You know.
Yeah.
Diversify.
So like 800 a month, right? You got 5 people, and you sell a bunch of products. You're gonna have to raise the prices a certain percentage to make that back, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like to what Karma was saying. I don't think that amount. If you raise all your prices across the board by 5% to pay those people, and then you chill them,
Mhm.
that's fine. I'll pay the 5%
Yeah.
extra for the whatever.
You will.
Yeah.
But will in a
Yeah.
small community where the small.
Like, if it's a niche problem, like someone's making like candles, are you really gonna pay for, like, that difference?
Right.
Like, it's a candle,
No,
but
dude.
that's their livelihood.
Yeah.
Or
Or
if
no,
someone-
candles are luxury goods now, man. They're heavily good. No, I'm
I
serious.
also make minimum wage, and that 5% increase is just like ridiculous. You know.
Yeah.
But you just got more than a 5% minimum wage increase.
Mm.
So
Mm.
presumably you would be able to
Mm,
afford it.
so yeah, okay.
You know.
Yeah.
You know.
also,
Good for
I'm
them.
thinking about like there's this graph that I saw where company growth over time is like exponential, and then
Yeah.
like job wages growth is
Mhm.
very stagnant. So
Yeah.
when I think about that graph, I'm like, of course, like minimum wage
Yeah.
should be increased.
Yeah.
Okay, final thoughts on minimum wage. Going once, twice.